Yes, thank you, Siobhan. So I'm going to try to add some more intelligent statements to everything that has already been said, which is not an easy task, but I'm still going to try. I'm going to start with, let's say, the very big picture, and then I'm going to end up with what concretely we are doing at the moment. And so I was happy with Christian's final statements about the need to innovate. We are indeed also, I can recognize that the legislative process is slow sometimes, or slower than the innovation, but I think that's the way it's supposed to be. If we are making laws faster than industry can innovate, then I would be really worried. So let me start with the bigger picture, which is, of course, the Paris Agreement and our long-term decarbonization goals. That is what is driving the EU energy transition. That is what is driving also the work in the European Commission at the moment. And we are looking towards Paris to see to what do we need to do in order to get to 2050. That work is starting now. We are planning to come up with a first view on how we think that can happen and what we need to do by the end of the year. So that is what our colleagues are very busy with. And of course, then we are looking at everything, at the whole society. So we are looking at industry, at transport, at the energy sector. And I think it's fair to say that in industry, also you showed a slide about that, Christian, there has been a lot that has been achieved, but we also know that if we want to decarbonize further, it's going to be very, very difficult because we're no longer just making, let's say, improvement in the processes. We're really looking at radically different ways of doing these processes or producing or the type of products we use. So that's going to be a big, big challenge and a big challenge also for research and innovation. The other one is transport, where we are not even decreasing or not half as much as we need. And so that's also going to be a big challenge. What can we do about that? That is also a question of infrastructure, and the link with electricity there is very clear. It's the same thing with the energy-intensive industry. Also there we see that there are basically, if we want to make it sustainable, two roads. One is electrification, and the other one is bio-based. There does not seem to be much between them. And so these are huge challenges. And I would like to think that actually when we look at the energy system, we realize that the challenges are big and that the transformation that is happening is huge and it requires huge investments. But I think at least if we are sitting here together, we can envisage what the solution looks like and what we need to do to get there. And so I find all the presentations that I heard today so far very, very inspiring, because there is no shortage of ideas and there is no shortage of technologies. It's just a matter of how can we get this all in a system working together. And I think that is what, so that brings me a bit closer by, because I think that is what we're trying to do when we talk about our 2030 plans, which is of course putting in place legislation so that we achieve what we have said we want to achieve in terms of renewables and energy efficiency, but that is also about how do we make sure that our energy system is fit for the future. And that means how do we make sure that our energy system, let's say the energy market, is adapted to the increasing share of renewables, but also that the renewables are adapting more and more to get a real, let's say, grown-up life in the energy market. That's all what the Clean Energy Package is about, which is being negotiated at the moment. I think the Austrians, when they take over the presidency from the second half of this year, they are going to put a lot of effort into getting that agreed as soon as possible. And of course, was mentioned already, it's all about decentralization, digitalization, and decarbonization. It's all about getting the flexibility in the system to be used so that we can integrate more and more renewables at the cheapest cost. And I think that is, let's say, if you look at it from the grid perspective, that is what we need to achieve. I think there is a very important parallel development happening, more linked to the digitalization, which starts with the consumers, which is about the services, the sharing economy, the applications, the mobile phones. Everything is becoming smarter and becoming more and more connected. And that is something that is happening, let's say, regardless of what we are doing in the energy sector. It is happening on a lot of levels. And if we look at that type of innovations, I think that provides a beautiful opportunity to link it with what we're trying to do in the energy system, but it also means that we need to look at it differently, because we need to connect, let's say, the needs from the grid, from the energy system, and how can we involve consumers in that, but we need to link that with what is driving the consumer markets, and what is driving the consumers to start making their homes smarter, which can be linked to energy if they are probably one of you or one of your families that you convinced to worry about their energy consumption. But it can very well be health reasons that will say, I want to smarten, let's say, my grandmother or my mother's house so that she can live alone for a bit longer, or live independently for a bit longer. Or it can be security and safety, or it can be mobility concepts. It can be all kind of different things. And I think what we need to make sure is that when these technology developments are happening and when consumers are investing in those kind of things, that we make it very easy when they smarten their house, that they smarten also their energy supply, energy consumption, so that they can contribute to the transformation of the grid. And if we can get them to invest in these things, we're really going to speed up. Because, of course, they have, let's say, a different investment decisions, different ways of looking at, let's say, how they spend their money. But we need to get consumers engaged in energy production and in the energy system transformation. So linking those two things, let's say the grid needs and the consumer perspective, and a more and more drive towards a service-based, IT-based economy is, I think, one of the big challenges. And so what we need to do, basically what bring those two things together are data and platforms. So the data exchange, this multiplication of data that will come from consumers, how are we going to use that for the benefit of the energy system? And for that we need the platforms where this data comes together, where these data are being valorized and monetized so that there is an interest for consumers to do something with all the flexibility that they have. And there is the possibility for network operators to use all this flexibility for the benefit of the grid, and for aggregators and suppliers to come in and get these consumers on board for the energy transition, provide services to them that they like, and make money based on that. So what we need to do, apart from writing laws that put this on course, and I think that is what we have done with the Clean Energy Package. It puts a lot of emphasis on the flexibility of the market, on dynamic pricing, on smart buildings, for example, on active network management and procurement of services by network operators from all these distributed assets. What we need to do is now test those things, test and invest, and see how these things can work, because indeed the developments are going very fast, and we need to bring together the ICT and the energy worlds to do these things together. So that means we need to make open standards, interoperable solutions, and we are, with our current Horizon 2020 work program, putting a lot of emphasis on exactly those kind of things. On the one hand, by investing a lot in projects where we want to see how network operators, both TSOs and DSOs, work together with the market to procure these services from all the distributed assets in a coordinated way. So setting up the platforms where this happens, setting up the markets where this happens, looking at the type of products that they can procure and these kind of things. And we hope that with these projects we can also set a kind of European benchmark of how this can work and how we can develop this further. That is the interface between, let's say, the system and the consumer. I think at the same time, 1 minute? Oh, I only need 55 seconds, so that's good. The other thing is, one thing is the platform, the markets where these things meet. The other thing is make it easy for a consumer. As I said, if he wants to get involved in smartening his home, that is very easy. For the energy sector, for the energy services to come in and say, if you're doing something intelligent in your home anyway, then we might as well use that to also make your home very intelligent from an energy perspective. So lowering the transaction cost in that sense, making it easy for these services to enter into a consumer's house is key, and for that interoperability standards in the IoT world is very important. So we're doing that together with our colleagues from Connect, because of course they take this kind of whatever a consumer is doing type of perspective, and we are looking at it to make sure that from the energy sector that those things are also feasible and work out. Then I think one of the previous speakers also mentioned the importance of big data and data exchange between all these different parties. And that links basically to the back offices of all these energy companies, which is by nature a market where there are a lot of different parties that need to talk to each other. So the way they communicate with each other, the way the ICT infrastructure is laid out is very important to enable that ease of data exchange. And I think now we're still very much talking about metering data, smart metering data, but in the future it will be the meter and the car and the fridge and the freezer. Was that already 55 seconds? Really? Then I underestimated it. Anyway, these are some of the things we are investing in and where we really want to push the market forward. That is what we're doing now with Horizon 2020. You may know that we're also discussing what we're going to do in the next 7 years from 2021 onwards. We are arguing that we need a lot more money to invest in energy research and innovation. It's going to focus a lot on this integration aspect between energy and transport, between energy and industry, between energy and digital. And we are aiming at mainstreaming of energy and climate actions in research and innovation of 25%. So that is also a big increase compared to now, because now it is 20%.
Thank you.
I hope with that we are going to be ready for the future.
And so thank you very much, Mark.